Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another Top Cut breakdown. Today we're going over the CGU New Jersey 1K tournament as well as the PPG Miami Draft Box 6 tournament. There were more tournaments this weekend than the ones I'm going to go over today in the video, but some of the tournaments that happened over the weekend, guys, they didn't include Draft Box 6 in their format. Now, I'll just say this real quick, get it out of the way. Draft Box 6 doesn't seem to be impacting the meta too much, which we will talk about that more as we get into the video. But I didn't want to go over another set 11 kind of breakdown. I didn't want to do like half set 11, half Draft Box 6 of a breakdown. That didn't really make too much sense to do in my head, so I figured it would just be best if we just move on, get into the Draft Box 6 stuff, because these tournaments did happen release weekend. Very sorry if you guys wanted to see me talk about some of the other tournaments. Congratulations to all the players that did well at those tournaments. I don't want to, like, take anything away from them. I'm just saying I think it's time we probably start talking about Draft Box 6, considering it was the tournament weekend of Draft Box 6 release. So that being said, guys, if you are new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. If you want to help the channel out, there are many ways down in the description to do so. Go check out all those links, particularly if you want to start topping some of these events and playing at a competitive level. Check out the Patreon down below, it will help you out. That being said, let's get started. So firstly, we have the CGU top 8. We had 3 Gotenks, 2 Vegex, 2 Red Broly, and 1 Majin Vegeta. And then for the PPG top 8, we had 2 Vegex, 2 Red Broly, 1 Reboot Hit, 1 Green Starter Broly, believe it or not, 1 Invoker, and 1 Sin Shenron. So let's start breaking it down. So Vegex and Gotenks, nothing we're not used to seeing, right? So at PPG, Vegex won the tournament, and then at the CGU 1K, Vegex and Gotenks actually split in the finals to take both the prizes home, right? So again, we're pretty much totally used to seeing this. I really don't think there's much from Draft Box 6 that directly influences these decks in general. I would say the biggest impact Draft Box 6 probably had was probably for red decks. If we're looking at more of like just a generic power boost, I would say that was probably mostly directed at red. But that just leads me to say what I wanted to say in the beginning of this video, is that Draft Box 6 doesn't seem to have like a ginormous impact on the meta, right? We got a few archetypes that are kind of cool. I think Hirudegarn's pretty cool. I did post a deck list for the green Hirudegarn stuff the other day if you want to check that out on the channel. And then we have like the Bardock's crew stuff. We have some of the red burn stuff, which again, I think red is probably the most beneficial out of Draft Box 6, but it doesn't seem to impact the meta a whole lot. And that's actually pretty different than what we're used to, because usually, whether it's a side set or a main set, particularly a draft box, when a draft box comes out, we're totally expecting it to shift the meta up, right? We're totally expecting it to shake things up, and that wasn't too much of the case with this draft box. I think they probably purposely pulled back a little bit of the power level of Draft Box 6, because Draft Box 4 and Draft Box 5, the prices of cards in those sets were astronomically ridiculous, and a lot of players were complaining about it, and again, rightfully so. I don't think they did the draft boxes perfectly. Draft Box 4 was definitely a big mess, especially when you consider the old cards they decided to reprint in that draft box. Draft Box 5 fixed some of those issues, but Draft Box 6, I feel like they've probably done a pretty good job of, especially considering none of the cards are ridiculously priced right now. I think the most expensive card is Demigra Overwhelm, which is maybe at about $30. They also like increased the pull rates, which is really good. But as far as the strength of the cards go, it wasn't really that crazy to impact the meta. Now, there are some decks in this video we will talk about that directly receive buffs from Draft Box 6, and those definitely did make a splash in the meta, but usually we kind of expect like an entire overhaul of the format, right? But that's not quite what we've seen with Draft Box 6 release weekend. Maybe some stuff will change, we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, Vegex, Gotenks, again, these two decks have just been dominant since the start of set 11 format, and I think this is how side sets should probably be. Side sets probably shouldn't introduce a brand new format. They should kind of just add on to the current format we're in, which I think actually Anniversary Box 2020 did a good job of, and Draft Box 6 following that type of logic. I think that's actually a pretty good thing. So I would say we're still in a set 11 heavy format, and of course there are numerous set 10 decks still doing very well, right? Like exactly like Vegex, and then you have like, Gotenks for set 11. But the side set did shake a few things up. Let's start talking about that as we get into the next set of decks. So we have Red Broly topping here as well, and Red Broly is one of the main beneficiaries of Draft Box 6 with King Piccolo, the new ruler. We all know Red Broly is a hyper aggressive beast. I mean, it just takes swap to a whole new level. Like, I guess you could say Hirudegarn Storm was just as aggressive as this, but I mean, the way that you're dropping like 30k crit battle cards as early as turn 2, it kind of does give Storm a run for its money, I would say. I mean, it's kind of crazy how it does it. It's a super aggressive, super fast deck. It's definitely capped by the fact that a tournament pack Broly is very difficult to get. I think at the time of recording they're still about $70 a piece, so I wouldn't go into a tournament expecting a ton of people to be playing this deck, but I would definitely be prepared for it. If it was a best of 3, I would definitely tailor my sideboard for it as best I could, and even a best of 1. I mean, if you're playing a deck where Red Broly is your worst matchup, it's just too fast, too aggressive for you, you definitely want to tailor your deck in a best of 1 scenario in order to deal with Red Broly as best it can. But anyways, King Piccolo, New Ruler, an incredible card for Red Broly. Let's give it a quick read. 3-drop, 15k, double strike, permanent. If your leader card is red, this card gets plus 5,000 power, and your opponent can't activate blocker skills in response to this card's attack. Activate mana if you have a red Houston card in play with 3 or more markers on it. Play this card from your hand, and you can't play copies of this card for the turn. Auto, at the end of your turn, send this card to the owner's warp. Okay, so Red Broly pretty much gets 2 overwhelms a turn, which is kind of ridiculous. I mean, a 20k double striker, that's essentially what we're getting with Man on a Mission, which is a double strike crit, granted, but it is an overwhelm. This is essentially another overwhelm because at the end of the turn it does go to the warp, and it's a free 20k double strike. Your opponent can't even block, so that's relevant against Sin Shenron. That's relevant against Bulma, which is seeing a bit of popularity in this meta. So I mean, an incredible boost for Red Broly. Definitely probably a 3 to 4 of staple, because by the time you drop Kale and you pump it full of markers in 1 turn, you could realistically drop this Piccolo turn after turn after turn and not really get punished for it. So really strong there in terms of draft box 6 editions. Then we have one Majin Vegeta topping as well. I mean, this is something that we just see, and it kind of, you know, it kind of just hits or misses, right? I mean, Majin Vegeta is one of those hyper aggressive decks that just does well from time to time. What's really cool about this deck, though, is that this actually was a best of 3 tournament at the CGU 1K where it topped, and generally we don't see aggro doing quite as well at best 3 tournaments, but Majin Vegeta still managed to pull it out. I don't really think that there's too much in draft box 6 that directly influences Majin Vegeta in such a profound way. Maybe a few cards here or there, but it's still really cool to see this deck top. And again, if you're going to want to play this deck, maybe when the new expansion sets come out, they're getting a new Majin Buu that helps you search out your engine so that you can pull out that turn 2 kill a lot more consistently. So you're going to want to try that out for sure. All right, now here we go, talking about one of the PPG decks, Reboot Hit. This is actually super cool because this is actually Reboot Hit, but the main deck was pretty much mono green. So basically what this deck wanted to do was get to the backside, and they wanted to use the ability of replaying a skillless battle card from your drop as much as possible, and that's going to trigger your Frieza Army healing pod when you play a green battle card from the drop area, draw 1. So the red leader really didn't matter too much in this scenario. It was, again, more so just for that skill rather, and the main deck was mostly mono green. What's really cool is there are other cards in the deck that triggered healing pod as well. One of those was Nappa Demolition Man, the red green super combo from way back when. That card hasn't seen too much competitive success, but it's really cool here that it's, you know, usable in this scenario. I will say this list is probably very reliant on seeing healing pods, so decks like that don't always tend to do amazing. I mean, we saw experimentation with that with the green Frieza structure deck, right, where they play a ton of green battle cards out of the drop area. But nonetheless, it's so cool to see a deck like this. This is like the pinnacle of innovation, I would say, where you're just taking a really cool strategy that no one's really seen in the meta. You're taking a good leader. Assassin Hit Returns is actually an incredible leader, just for the fact that he gives you free value when he swings, pretty much +2 when he swings, and the activate main / battle again just provides incredible value, just dealing with problematic threats. So very cool there. I do like to see that this deck is in there a lot. And then next up, guys, we have green starter Broly from way back when. I want to say this is from like set 5 where this came out, and it did a lot in the meta that it came out in, but it hasn't done so much recently. But this deck topped PPG Miami, and it's actually kind of piloting a really cool twist. So this list actually played the Broly engine from that same starter deck. So if you guys remember, if you guys have been playing when this deck was more relevant, think of like Super Shenron meta, this deck played the main set Broly engine, which basically produced a bunch of double strikers. Those cards had activate battle effects where you could pop your opponent's battle cards by discarding cards. Now the starter engine is a lot different and actually never saw too much play. This starter engine basically provides you with a lot more hand control. So basically you go from your 1-drop into the starter deck 4-drop, which is a 20k crit, and then when that card is KO'd, you get to go into Broly the Ravager. He's a critical and then activate battle on both players' turns. You burst 3 and your opponent discards a card. So this is a pretty cool thing to see here, because again, this engine hasn't seen much competitive success, and the burst 3 is kind of relevant there because your leader has sparking, but besides that, you're also playing cards in the deck like Kamehameha Roshi Origins, and as well as, you know, rebrand punishing Unleashing Passion. So you want those cards in the drop area. You want to get them there. It's almost like you're playing a Dredge Goku once you get this guy onto the field, but definitely a much faster, much more aggressive version of a deck like that. So really cool to see that here once again. And finally, guys, wrapping up the weekend, we had Sin Shenron and Invoker top here. Again, these are just our pinnacle control decks, right? What's really interesting is actually at CGU, we didn't have really any control decks in the meta, or at least in the top 8, I should say. And you know, that was shown because a lot of mid-range and aggro ended up topping the CGU event. But at PPG, there was a good slew of a mixture. There was control, aggro, mid-range, Sin Shenron, and you know, UI Goku. Those were the pinnacle of control at PPG. I think it'll, you know, pretty much remain that way going forward. I have a lot of teammates actually that are convinced Sin Shenron is the best deck in the meta, so I guess we'll have to wait and see if that kind of proves itself to be true. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.